welcome to the Narrowing Path, walking the spiritual walk. My name is Steve Van Eiderstein. Thank y'all for joining me again today as we go through and do the daily reading for James Allen's Daily Meditation. And this will be fresh to you and fresh to me, meaning this will be my first time reading it or hearing it right here on the podcast with you. So you get my genuine response, reactions, observations, and what I relate to about the reading. So, I'm looking forward to today's reading. Love has been the topic of conversation, and action has been the topic of conversation over the last couple of days. And those are two topics that I don't think that could be talked about enough when it comes to spiritual way of life. Because the spiritual life is not a theory, we must live it. That's something said in the 12-step groups. And love is the most important quality. You know, we have to function and operate from a place of love and give up our own selfishness and self-centeredness. It's extremely important. So I'm excited to see what May 16th brings us from James Allen. And here we go. May 16th reading of James Allen's Daily Meditations. Before a man can know love as the abiding reality within him, he must utterly abandon all those human tendencies which frustrate us perfect manifestation. A man can only consciously ally himself to the vine of love by deserting all strife and hatred and condemnation and impurity and pride and self-seeking. It's quite a list. And by thinking and doing loving deeds. A list of things to give up and a pretty short list there to pursue. By so doing, he awakens within him the divine nature which he has therefore been crucifying and denying. Every time a man gives way to anger, impatience, greed, pride, vanity, or any other form of personal selfishness, he denies the Christ. He shuts himself out from love, and thus only Christ is denied, and not by refusing to adopt a formulated creed. Christ is only known to him who by constant striving has converted himself from a sinful to a pure being, who by noble moral effort has succeeded in relinquishing the perishable self, which is the source of all suffering and sorrow and unrest, and has become rational, gentle, peaceful, loving, and pure. Such glorious realization is the crown of evolution and the supreme aim of existence. All right. Love that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started again. I'm just looking up the first, I'm looking up the original on a PDF I have to see what the opening line was, because I kind of stumbled on that opening line. I'm going to read it again from the online copy that I have. So it opens with, before a man can know love as the abiding reality within him, he must utterly abandon all those human tendencies which frustrate its perfect manifestation. Okay. In the copies that have been made or the rewrites, which are not perfectly translated or perfectly moved over and rewritten, it switched its for us, so which frustrate its perfect manifestation. So what this is talking about here is we have to sacrifice the selfishness, the self-centeredness, the that litany of characteristics we've talked about yesterday, I think specifically, but also he mentions a lot of them today. We have to sacrifice those things so we can continue to move forward and we can actually realize what love is. That's a pretty amazing thing to be able to have the opportunity to do. A man can only consciously ally himself to the vine of love by deserting all, here's quite a list, all strife and hatred and condemnation and impurity and pride and self-seeking, and by thinking and doing loving deeds. Right? So all of these selfish and self-centered behaviors we have and motivations we hold on to need to be let go. Deserting all strife, deserting hatred, deserting condemnation, deserting impurity, deserting pride, deserting self-seeking. These are some of my favorite things. But I have to let them go, and I have to start changing my heart, my thoughts, and my deeds. By doing, and when we do that, we can consciously ally ourselves to the vine of love. By so doing, he awakens within him the divine nature which he has heretofore been crucifying and denying. So we've had this. I think yesterday he said something about it too. It is within us. Divine living righteousness is within us already. We have the instruction manual within our souls. That conscience we were blessed with. We know what is right and we know what is wrong. At least most of the time. Right? So, when he says, awakens within him the divine nature which he has heretofore been crucifying and denying. Again, so it's something located within us that we just don't want to be there, right? Because if we acknowledge it and we try to pursue it, it means we have to stop doing what we want to do. We have to stop living a selfish and self-serving ends. Not a lot of us like to do that. He goes on to say, every time a man gives way to any form of spiritual selfishness, he denies Christ and shuts himself out of love. So every time we feed our gluttony, we feed our lust, our self-serving, our self-indulgence, our vanity, covetousness is one of the ones they were using yesterday, and impatience, whatever it might be, our impurities, our pride, our self-seeking. We have to let these things go because they stand in between us. And denies Christ, and it shuts ourselves out from love. Right? Every time a man gives way to anger, impatience, greed, pride, vanity, or any other form of personal selfishness, he denies the Christ and shuts himself out from love. So yeah, when we follow those self-centered, selfish pursuits for one reason or another, glory, pleasure, distraction, fear, whatever, we shut ourselves out from the love of Christ. We shut ourselves out from love overall. And thus only is Christ denied, and not by refusing to adopt a formulated creed. So whenever we act selfishly, we deny Christ, not because we wouldn't buy into a religion or a creed, which is interesting. Christ is only known to him who, by constant striving, has converted himself from a sinful to a pure being, who by noble moral effort has succeeded in relinquishing the perishable self. So let's wow. Christ is only known to him. Love is only known to him who, by constant striving, has converted himself from sinful to a pure being. That is the process we're on. That's walking that spiritual walk. That's walking that narrowing path. Is that process of purification. That's what this is that constant evolution and growth of our soul and our thoughts and our deeds. And when we get there, we will be able to know Christ, to know love, to know peace, to know all of these beautiful teachings, and to know all of those beautiful emotions too. To a pure being, who by noble moral effort has succeeded in relinquishing that perishable self. So that selfishness, that temporary thrill-seeking self, that ego-preserving self, right? Like we have so... We don't realize how temporary our time here is in this physical body. It's a perishable self, like he talks about here. He finishes this main paragraph with, which is the source of all suffering and sorrow and unrest. He has become rational, gentle, peaceful, loving, and pure. What a conversion, right? So, which is, he calls the perishable self, the animalistic self, the pleasure-driven self. He says here, which is the source of all suffering and sorrow. That's a pretty big thing. Suffering and sorrow. And unrest, which has become rational, gentle. So it's our own personal desires and our own animalistic natures that cause our sorrows, sufferings, and unrest. And when we can let those things go, when we can let that side of our lives go and we practice this different way of living, it is the source of all suffering and sorrow and unrest, and has become rational, gentle, peaceful, loving, and pure. That's what we turn into as spiritual beings, walking the right path. And it ends with this line: such glorious realization is the crown of evolution, the supreme aim of existence. So achieving this spiritual level, achieving this spiritual manifestation is the crown, or is the supreme aim of the existence, is the crown of evolution, to be spiritually integrated. To have that perspective and understanding. It's a pretty beautiful gift to have, actually. So, well, we will go ahead. We'll wrap it up there. Thank you, everybody, for jumping on to today's reading of May 16th by James Allen. And it was definitely another great one. We have to give up ourselves. We have to die daily, I think, as some people, I think it was St. Francis said. But if not, don't call me names over it. But we have to die daily. And be humbled to walk in and be of service to those around us. So, well, I'm looking forward to tomorrow's. It should be another great one. I'm sure of it. I can feel it in my bones. So we will join again on May 17th. And we'll go from there. So, thank you so much. Until next time. Bye.